Financial help is on the way for Canada's 11,000 dairy farmers. Today, the feds announced that they will dole out $1.75 billion over the next 8 years in compensation for recent trade agreements that have caused dairy farmers to lose sales due to new outside competition. Who gets what depends on what each farmer has. For example, in the first year, a farmer with 80 cows would receive $28,000. The opposition, though, is asking what took so long.
Essentially, it took 4 years for the Liberals to come forward with the exact same plan that Stephen Harper came forward with just before the last election. And I do note that there's still a great deal of uncertainty in the dairy sector because Justin Trudeau has failed to put forward any concrete proposals on what will be done for the dairy sector after all the concessions that he gave away to Donald Trump during the NAFTA negotiations.
So does the timing of this announcement have anything to do with the election coming up in October? Earlier today, I spoke with Agriculture Minister Marie-Claude Bibeau. She joined us from Sherbrooke. Hi, Minister. Nice to see you again.
It's my pleasure to be with you.
Minister, dairy farmers have been asking for a specific figure on compensation since the new NAFTA was agreed to more than 7 months ago. Is the announcement happening today because the election is around the corner?
We've been working very hard with the industry. Before the signature of the CPTPP, because these compensation are for the agreement with the European Union and the Trans-Pacific Zone. So after that, we have committed to them that we would fully and fairly compensate them, and we have put in place a working group because we wanted to do the exercise of evaluating the impact with them and to looking at the various type of financial mechanisms we may use to compensate the producers and the processors.
So the timing you're saying has nothing to do with the election. We know what an important voting bloc, for example, to your party and others, dairy farmers are.
Yes, you're right, but I mean, it's a lot of money to distribute to 11,000 producers only for dairy producers. So it took some time to put in place the right mechanism.
The Prime Minister's office has confirmed to us that the Prime Minister himself assured dairy farmers that there won't be any more concessions at the expense of the dairy market in any future trade negotiations. But let's say NAFTA doesn't get ratified and in 2020 there's a new president in the United States who wants to reopen the deal. Does the no concession promise hold up then?
Well, it's very hard to talk about that kind of speculation, but if the actual second NAFTA agreement doesn't go through ratification, that would be, for the sector under supply management, there will be less impact or no more impact on them. So it's very hard to answer to your question with it, which is, canceling one and...
Well, I understand that. I take your point that it's a hypothetical, but it's one that we've heard, for example, from the Democrats that they do want it reopened. And I just want to be clear on the specifics of the promise the Prime Minister made to dairy farmers. Is it writ large, any future trade negotiation, there will be no more concessions from dairy farmers, or is there wiggle room there?
Well, when we say that, we are thinking in the short term about the Mercosur, for example. So saying if this agreement with the United States would be canceled and then will reopen in a few years, it's really hard for me to answer clearly, but there will be no more than the 3 that are on the table right now, or the size of the share that has been given away through these 3 agreements.
So the concessions, if any, would be similar. They would never go above and beyond what's already been made, is what you're saying.
This is the intention.
Okay, let me switch to another topic that I'm sure you're familiar with this week, the release of the Ethics Commissioner's report on the SNC-Lavalin controversy. It revealed kind of just how involved the company was in crafting and fast-tracking implementation of the remediation agreement provisions, otherwise known as a DPA. Are you comfortable, Minister, with the level of involvement SNC had in the legislative process?
Well, the legislative process has been through, all the steps that it must go through, and it was adopted unanimously at in the Parliament. So all parties agreed to having that type of legal mechanism to make sure that the people who would have got, into illegal action would face charges, but without compromising the future of, in this case, thousands of jobs, and also we may think about the retired who may lose, their pension. So the idea behind this law was approved by each and every party in the parliament.
That doesn't kind of tell the whole story, though. I take your point, it was when they voted for the budget implementation bill, but that was an omnibus bill. This was tacked on to it. It therefore wasn't, even though as an amendment to the criminal code, examined by the Justice Committee, it was instead examined by the Finance Committee, and there was sort of limited, it wasn't a fulsome debate. There was some, but it wasn't fulsome. The Ethics Commissioner, clearly lays out that SNC went to the Finance Minister's office and said it would be faster if you attached this to the omnibus budget implementation bill, and then that's what happened. Do you think that is right? Like, is that ethical to you?
Well, it followed a legislative process that is acceptable, and all parties agreed to it, and all parties voted for. So I don't see the problem there.
So you don't see any problem with SNC asking for something that would benefit the company, and it involving a legislative amendment to or tack on to a budget implementation bill, and then the government following through on that?
Well, SNC has lobbied all the parties, and we have followed the rules, and it has been implemented with the support of everyone. And I think the idea behind that is that we want to make sure that the people who undertook illegal action would face justice, while we would not jeopardize jobs across the country and pensions across the country.
Can I interpret your remarks to mean that the deferred prosecution agreement is still on the table for SNC?
I'm not involved in the process. I'm not a jurist myself, so I let us, our Minister of Justice, handle the file.
Would you support? Would you personally, as a representative of your constituency, support the awarding of a DPA, or the intervention, I guess, of the Attorney General so that a DPA is awarded?
I trust Minister Lametti will make the best recommendation.
Okay, I'll leave it there. Thank you very much, Minister Bibeau. I appreciate your time today.
Thank you.
So just how widespread was SNC-Lavalin's lobbying on Parliament Hill? They began their efforts in 2016 after the company was charged with bribery and fraud. It started with the Prime Minister's office, but then went across departments and party lines. The company began by meeting with Quebec MP François-Philippe Champagne, then Parliamentary Secretary to Finance Minister Bill Morneau. Then SNC-Lavalin reached the Prime Minister's office through meetings with Trudeau's senior advisors. The company then targeted top ministries. By the end of 2017, it had met with nearly a dozen departments, including industry, natural resources, even heritage. After 51 meetings since that initial meeting with Champagne, the government tabled a change to the criminal code in the omnibus budget bill. Then, the company needed that bill to pass, so it secured meetings with officials in Conservative leader Andrew Scheer's office, with NDP leader Jagmeet Singh, and top senators including Peter Harder, the government's representative in the Senate. In June 2018, that bill passed. And Quebec Premier François Legault commented on the SNC-Lavalin controversy earlier today. He says that although he generally disagrees with the Prime Minister, on this issue they see eye to eye. Remember that SNC is, of course, headquartered in Quebec.
On this matter, I fully agree with the intention. I think it's not because we had 2-3 crooks at SNC-Lavalin that all the employees of SNC-Lavalin have to suffer from this situations. Now, regarding the means, I don't want to comment about the way it was done, but I understand very well the intention of Mr. Trudeau.
Hi, I'm Vashi Capellos, host of Power in Politics. See more of our show by subscribing to the CBC News channel or click the link for another video. Thanks for watching.